You're listening to the SEC Recap Podcast. I am your host, Ben Warren. We've got an awesome episode today. I got the band back together again for a Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse podcast. We're going to sit down and talk Vols being number one in the college football playoff rankings, talking Josh Heupel, NIL, recap a little bit of the Kentucky game, and look at Tennessee at Georgia. We had a ton of fun sitting down and recording this. We talk about football like most fans talk about football. We just love the game. We don't get too into the X's and O's. We just like to shoot the breeze and talk Jimmys and Joes. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SEC Recap. Like, share, subscribe. You can find us anywhere you find your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube now. Enjoy this episode. All right, guys, welcome to the SEC Recap Podcast. We got the full band, and when I say the full band, I mean the full band. We got the studio group and the touring group back. I gave them some time off. I gave them a couple weeks R&R, but we're back in force to rock your eardrums. I am joined again by Gordon White. I've got Andrew Turner. Got Andrew Center, but we call him Squirrel.
Hey,
we're joined by our good friend down in the Sunshine State, John Reagan, tonight. We got David Springer and William Truitt over in Northcac.
Hello.
Guys, the CFP rankings just came out. Your top four is Clemson at number 4, Georgia at number 3, Ohio State at 2, and our Tennessee Vols at number 1. How do we feel about that?
Man, that's just a warm feeling inside that there's no better feeling.
Yeah, it's a great day. Just an absolute, great week, great season. Fit into today. Super happy.
It's like warm apple pie. You wake up on Thanksgiving and like that. Let's have some dessert. It's amazing.
Anybody know when the last time we were ranked number 1 in any poll was?
98.
98, right?
1998.
Feels like 98.
Feels like 98.
T. Martin, Al Wilson.
Turner, don't say that. That's a Tennessee kind of thing, where you Tennessee things. No.
We're all wearing Tennessee.
Actually,
here.
I don't think that is Tennesseeing things anymore. I think we actually destroyed the memes, at least for a year. So, yeah.
We were unranked coming into this year. I'll just keep thinking about that.
And we were 7 and 6 last year.
Yeah.
They didn't believe.
We should have been 8 and 5. We should have beat Purdue.
I totally agree.
We did beat Purdue, but
there was a touchdown there that wasn't called a touchdown. That looked awfully like a touchdown.
If it looks like a touchdown, it acts like a touchdown, but it wasn't a touchdown.
Yeah, the Music City Bowl, never again. Good news, though. This year, I don't think we're going to have to worry about a Music City Bowl. If we win in Athens this weekend, we know where we're going to be, and that's in the college football playoff. So let's talk a little bit about Kentucky. Now, when I picked this game, I picked Tennessee to win, of course. I actually haven't picked against Tennessee at all this year. Going back to the Bama game, when Andrew and I were just kind of duoing on the podcast, I said, man, if this line opens up at less than 2 touchdowns, I'm taking Tennessee.
Right.
Because the Vols have gotten no respect from the Vegas odds all season. Respect. We were an underdog on the road at LSU. We were a 3.5 point underdog, or 2.5 points, something like that, at LSU, and we were a ranked team. And they weren't. And nothing's changed. This Georgia line opened up, and I think it's sitting around like 8.5, 9. Dude, when are these guys going to learn, man? Vols are 7-1 against the spread. Like, I'm not picking against them. So I'm going to pick them in Georgia, like full spoiler, full disclosure. But going into Kentucky, like, I thought we would win, but not like 38 points win.
Well, I thought we would win 50. Like I projected 52-24. I thought it would be a blowout because Kentucky is, like I said before, Kentucky's going to Kentucky.
I thought Kentucky would put more points up. Honestly, I did. I thought that they could do better than 6 points. Like, even though Tennessee's defense can do good things when they need to, I thought they could at least do something during that game, and that Will Levis can show that He's a first-round NFL pick.
Nah, he's like a first-round XFL pick, man.
Yeah.
Like if anything.
Will Levis was exposed in that one.
Hey, he made some pretty great tackles that game. So
Yeah.
He had more tackles than touchdowns.
Well, but realistically though, like Tennessee is, we've lost one time to Kentucky in the past 20 years. Tennessee does not lose to Kentucky, so I'm not shocked that we just dominated.
No.
Have y'all heard talk that they're already like talking about firing their offensive coordinator,
Ooh.
who was like an NFL guy? That is like his first year, dude. That happened last year too. I think like when we played Mizzou, we went up to Mizzou and we were actually an underdog in that game and ran up like 60 points on them. They fired their defensive coordinator. Like Tennessee's getting everybody in past 2 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say our defense last week is starting to really trying to live up to the offense. I think they're getting a lot of media that's basically saying, "Oh, Tennessee could win the Natty, but their defense is not good enough." Like, look at Michigan, look at all these schools, you know. And so I think that they're starting to take that as things they need to really step up and plug the holes of the entire system and the machine that we've got right now. And that's why they only got 6 points. It's such an incredible game.
Well, the complaint has always been, the secondary. Our secondary was nasty.
3 interceptions, yeah.
We held them to 98 yards.
And that hit Slaughter coming in from a safety, that was beautiful. Absolutely annihilating. One of the most beautiful hits I've seen this season.
He had a great game, the whole game.
He had another interception.
Yeah, and like touching on your point about our defense stepping up, that's been sort of the story of this entire season. The thing that's really made me feel good about the Vols this season is that when we've had problems, it's not like been a consistent thing. It's been like problems, and then we've seen consistent working on those things and actually improving on them from game to game.
Well, Tennessee's defense has been on the field for 45 minutes per game. Like, so their endurance is finally kicking in. I feel like they're right in their peak. Like they're in their shape, they're in their prime. I mean, it's hard playing 45 minutes of defense.
If that defense, if the defense from this weekend shows up this weekend in Athens, I think we crushed Georgia, and it's not close. And I've got some stats to look at a little bit later when we dive more into the Georgia game. But that's the first game. Well, here's something interesting for you guys. So this is going to be our third road game of the season. It's kind of mind-boggling to think that we've only played 2 road games. We played at Pitt, we played at LSU. Those are the 2 games so far this season that we've actually seen our defense step up, and we're kind of the reason that we won the game. Now, our offense was a lot better at LSU, but like I credit our defense with that Pitt win. Like our offense was really shaky at Pitt. Like we did not look good like I expected us to look. Yeah. At LSU, it all started with that special teams play, that muffed punt, like first play of the game, and then it just snowballed from there. And we held them to like, what was it, the 13 points or 17 points or something like that?
Honestly, that play that you mentioned, I think if I could say out of all the whole season, that was the flip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, because everybody was like, oh, Tennessee's okay. Tennessee's good. And then we went on the road and you're right. We didn't just crush them, at that game up at Pittsburgh. We just comfortably beat them at the end. And then everybody's like, oh, yeah, but they got to go play LSU. And then the way it opened was like, nope, we're here to dominate. And then since that happened, it's been all acceleration.
But Pitt was also the second game of the season. Like, we're just like, we weren't in our stride yet.
We're just saying we've gotten better throughout the whole season. Every game is just like we just keep improving.
I consider the Pitt game like a preseason game. Yes, it was like a good matchup. Yeah, it was a long time ago. I feel like it was a preseason. It was a good matchup. It helped us get ready, and then it's just been on high octane ever since.
Well, so
you got to give some credit to Tim Banks. He's gotten the team ready. They don't get the credit. They give up a ton of yards. They're on the field a lot. They're undermanned oftentimes, but You look at the Pitt game, they came up with a stop late to win the game. They had to do the same thing against Florida. They showed up in big games against LSU. Obviously, this big game against Kentucky. And the way they've done it has been dialing up pressure at the right time. That's coaching, right? Because they had trouble getting pressure earlier in the year. But one thing I saw in the Kentucky game that changed things is they were running stunts, 4 guys. They were rushing 5, not 6 and 7 like they had to do against Alabama to bring the pressure. And I think that allowed the secondary to sit back, make some plays, get some confidence. You know, if the Vols are making some plays and turnovers on defense and getting a few stops, they can run with anybody with that offense. It's you know, and I agree. I don't think we've seen their best ball yet. If they both put it together, they could be unstoppable.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like the consistency and the growth and the progression from week 1. And like you said, I think that Pitt game was the turning point, or that LSU game, excuse me, because we came out of that Pitt game thinking like, oh man, like this is the team we got to roll in and try to beat Florida with. And we hung on. Like they made it look a little closer than it was in the end. But you know, then we went to LSU knowing we had Alabama the very next week. And I mean, we laid it to them, and defense was a big part of that. This is the 3rd time this season that we're going to go on the road, and seeing our defense play the way they played against Kentucky, that gives me a lot of confidence going into Athens. And I'm honestly going to say, like, for the first time, I haven't seen anything from Georgia. I know we're still technically on Kentucky right now, but I haven't seen anything from Georgia that scares me and says like, oh, we can't win this game.
I'm right there with you, Ben.
Yeah. Except for the fact that they are really good at run defense. And if they stop this run, the safeties are going to sit back. We're not going to have deep ball throws. But, I think it's scary to both teams.
Well, you know, look at Kentucky. I mean, they got one of the best backs in the league. Like Chris Rodriguez is one of the best backs in the league. And I'm going to get to this a little later. We held him to 64 yards. I mean, he did have their lone touchdown, but like we held him to 64 yards. And that's been a pattern with us. Like we have held running backs well below their season averages, up to and even beyond after they play. You see them go and play other teams and they're rushing for at or above their averages. And we're one of the few teams that are holding these backs to below that. So I think it says a lot. And then like John said, when you are stout against the run, it lets a lot of these guys that you have in the secondary, guys like Danico Slaughter, who are super athletic, but just don't have experience at the position really. Dude, let them get out there, get their feet wet, make some hits, and then they got that confidence. And you have to have that confidence, especially going in. Like now you are the number 1 team. You're going to Georgia, who everybody still knows, I think, is probably the best team in the country right now. Now, if we win, they won't be. But I don't think there's any dispute that we all still believe, despite that number 1 ranking, that like Georgia's probably the best team in the country until proven otherwise.
They still need to be dethroned.
I have a feeling that the Georgia that we saw playing against Missouri is the real Georgia. I mean, yes, they're going to grunt out a victory and win, but I feel like the Georgia team that we saw against Missouri is the real Georgia.
Dude, what about this trap game? What a trap game that was, right? We're just looking ahead to Georgia, Kentucky. They're just going to sneak in here, upset us, ruin our season. Is all a trap game. I guess LSU was also a trap game. Pitt was a trap game. We just got a season full of trap games.
I mean,
I'll tell you, you should really be afraid. Who should really be afraid this week is Mississippi State, because they have to play Georgia next week. And we know what happened to them after we beat Alabama, because they had to play Alabama the week after we beat them, too.
Scary.
Yeah. They're like the whipping boy. Yeah, they're the whipping boy of the SEC.
Living in Nashville, the second best thing living in Nashville is seeing all the Kentucky fans, Kentucky basketball fans, whenever they lose to the University of Tennessee. The best thing was recently whenever seeing all the Kentucky fans thinking that they had a chance to beat Tennessee in this football game.
It was great being in Memphis because there was so much confusion about what to think about things, as to Kentucky losing to Tennessee while there's still basketball season going on with Memphis. So I think the hate is still there, but it was very interesting seeing their response. I think they just hated everything.
Can we just say it? Everybody loves Tennessee right now, even if they don't or didn't coming into this season. It's a hard story not to get excited about. Like, it's the underdog comes back roaring. You're seeing a big national push on it. And I think it's a feel-good story for a lot of people. So, welcome them to the hype train, bring them on board, and let's ride it as far as we can, right?
Yeah, dude, orange is the new black, baby.
Yeah. I did meet one person this week, or it was actually the week before, like a day before Kentucky, like the Friday, and he was like dropping off something to me. And he saw that I had a Vol sticker on my truck, and he was like, "Man, yeah." I was like, that'd be a nice truck if it didn't have that sticker on it, And he was I was like, "Oh, you a Georgia fan?" He was like, "Yeah."
Well,
I guess I live in an interesting place I live in North Carolina, so I live in Heath Schuler's hometown.
You're like an hour away from Athens.
The NC State rivalry is coming back. So I saw.
Yeah. Well, I don't get into them.
Well, the Tennessee haters are coming out. I'm already hearing people say, "Oh, I can't stand Tennessee fans because they're so loud and obnoxious." I've been like, dude, we've been pretty quiet for the better part of the last decade.
Long time.
There have been a lot of Tennessee defectors, like to other teams. There have been a lot of quote unquote Tennessee fans who magically, bought an Alabama shirt at a Dollar General and became Alabama fans over the years.
That's a good point, Gordon. I think a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to be surprised how quickly Tennessee can turn into hated fans because there's that pent-up time. And, I mean, we can turn into Alabama, Homer-type fans real fast if we get good again and stay good. So, we'll enjoy the bandwagon fans while we can, right?
Not just good at football, though. I mean, we won the SEC tournament in basketball. We won the SEC pennant in baseball. Like,
we're coming for it. First time
women's basketball is back, dude. I'm telling you, like,
Tennessee is back.
If the rest of the world isn't paying attention, because there's still not a lot of eyes on basketball and baseball, but if you're really watching and you're looking at Tennessee and Josh Heupel now, dude, it's not just Josh Heupel and the Vols. Like, that's the biggest story right now. But men's basketball is good, baseball is good, football is good, and when all of those things are clicking, dude, yeah, there are going to be a lot of people who hate us in the very near
astronauts.
future.
Well, I saw that there were, I think, 15 sports that Tennessee was ranked in the top 25 for men's and women's sports. Total. So yeah, Tennessee's back. Tennessee is.
Dude, I want it, man. I want to dominate in swimming, diving, whatever, dude. I want it all.
Track and field, soccer. I want it all. Yeah.
We want rowing.
Club leagues,
rowing. Yeah. Ultimate.
I'm pretty sure we're number one in all of that already, guys. Y'all need to be paying attention.
So wake up. Let's talk about some of this a little bit more. We kind of brought this up earlier in the week in the chat, but Tony Romo, was it Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, kind of had those offhanded comments about there's going to be a whole lot of people in the NFL who want Josh Heupel. So before we get into the nitty gritty of the Georgia game, let's hit on that a little bit. I mean, what are your vibes on Josh Heupel? Do you think he's short term, long term? What's the overall vibe?
Long term.
I hope he's long term. I'm hoping that the Chip Kelly motto goes. Chip Kelly was great in college, terrible in the NFL. So I think Heupel knows where he is his strongest, and that is recruiting, and that is college football. If any college football coach was going to be successful in the NFL, I feel like it would have been Nick Saban, and then he laid an egg in Miami. So, yeah, I hope the hype train stays at Tennessee. I think he knows where he's the strongest, and that's at college football.
Yeah, I mean,
the ace in the hole's got to be Danny White, right? Isn't that his name, the AD? That's his buddy. It's the guy that brought him in. They make a good team, right? That's our best chance. And then, of course, the almighty dollar. We're going to have to pay the man Saban plus money.
They will.
And,
pay him whatever he needs.
Of course, I mean, how often have you heard of somebody getting 2 extensions in 1 year? Because he's about to. Right, They extended him, I think, after the 4th game of the season, 4th or 5th game of the season. He's definitely getting another one by the end. Of this year.
They're going to extend that whole staff. Like everybody on that staff is going to get raises for sure.
I won't release sources, but I've definitely heard that money will not be an object for this coaching staff. And I mean, beyond that, just the track record of good NCAA and SEC, especially football coaches going to the NFL, like just stay where you're going to do well, stay where you're going to be on top and where you're going to shine, outshine your peers.
You kind of have the Kiffins of the world who just listen. I'm not like, I don't want this to turn into like a Kiffin hate hour or anything, but especially where we are now, I think we can kind of start to leave that in the past a little bit. But the one thing that is consistent about Kiffin is he has kind of always got his eye on what's next. Where am I trying to get to next? That's what got him to Tennessee. It's what got him from Tennessee to USC. It's what got him to Alabama, then to that head coaching gig at whatever Florida college, and then now at Ole Miss. But we know he's sitting here at Ole Miss probably licking his chops at the Auburn job. He's probably counting down the years till Nick Saban retires, because I think that's the job he really wants. Oh, I think Kiffin wants Bama. Like, I think Kiffin wants to be
Alabama?
The guy after the guy. Yes, 100%.
Someone's got to replace him. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Kiffin would love to be the guy that steps in after Saban. But I don't get those vibes from Heupel. Like John said, the wild card, I would call it a wild card maybe rather than an ace in the hole, is Danny White. How long does Danny White stick around at UT? Because if Danny White up and goes to, man, I don't know, like pick a Pac-12 school randomly, pick a Big Ten school. Like, does he take Josh Heupel with him and say, let's do this again? Not because maybe he's like thinks he can't hire somebody better, but I wonder, like, is this offense sustainable long-term in the SEC, or does it have kind of 3 or 4 years? Everybody figures it out. Everybody recruits dudes who can stop it. And then you kind of have to move on somewhere else.
So it's sustainable because we have an amazing backup quarterback that I know Turner loves. I'm not too worried about the offense sustaining. I would be worried about Danny possibly going. So I think he went to Notre Dame or Ohio State. I think he has a.
You cut out for just a second. We heard you say he went to Notre Dame or Ohio State.
Other than those 2 schools, there's not a better job than Tennessee. So I would be worried about Notre Dame or Ohio State if he was going to leave, but I don't think he's going anywhere unless it's those 2 schools.
No, I think he likes it here. I mean, I hear that he's taken out, people on his boat on the weekends, like different parts of the team, offense, defense, special teams. Like, I think he really likes the vibe here in East Tennessee, or at least I hope so. I think you're right. They will pay him. One thing when you're talking about that, and you're right, we need to pay our baseball coach to keep him, to be honest. We need to keep our basketball coach. I mean, I don't know how much money we have to pay all of these coaches top dollar in all, that would be interesting to think about because no school really does that. It's kind of each school kind of specializes. But I definitely see Heupel sticking around for a little bit. And you're talking about the idea of teams recruiting to stop this new offense. I think that's amazing. It reminds me of like, the Warriors, when all of a sudden they just changed the game and all of a sudden you had to just change the whole league, because one team all of a sudden came up with an entire offensive scheme. I mean, that's amazing. I think that's so awesome to have Tennessee as that team right now.
You're right. I just want to interject on one thing. It's not really a new offense. There's like probably 10 or maybe a dozen other teams in the country like even at like the FBS level, who run similar styles of offense to this. But I've kind of been working on this theory. I'm gonna do an article. I'm gonna do a full write-up on this at some point, maybe after the season's over, just depending on how all this shakes out, because it's a really interesting thought experiment. But I've sort of tentatively titled it Heupel's Gambit. And so you kind of saw him do some elements of his offense when he was the OC at Missouri. They had that really good quarterback that could just like sling it, all over the field. But he wasn't running the entire offense like with the elite athletes at this tempo and with all the wrinkles and everything in his playbook. He gets the UCF gig, stepping in after Scott Frost, where he really can make it his own offense. And even though he doesn't have elite talent, it's still FBS, and he's putting his own spin. He's kind of working and perfecting it. Now he's at Tennessee, and I think his gambit is, I'm going to see how well this offense can work. Everybody calls it gimmicky. Everybody calls it, fake. People call it an air raid offense all the time, which it completely is not. But I think his gambit is that, let me get elite SEC linemen on the defensive and offensive side of the ball, elite, fast SEC caliber receivers, and one of the best quarterbacks in the country, which they already have signed coming in. And like, let's see if anybody can stop this, and see how many playoffs we can get to.
Well, Heupel's success is not a mistake. I mean, he was a Heisman front runner at Oklahoma. He did well at Missouri. He did well as OC at Missouri. He did obviously great at Central Florida, and it's not a mistake. Like, this is not a fluke. Like, he is a brilliant offensive mind coach, and now that he's getting his defense together, it's pretty amazing.
I definitely agree. I guess my whole point was that I'm saying we don't really know yet because nobody's done it yet. I don't think anybody's really recruited the talent that Josh Heupel and this coaching staff want to recruit and run this offense at literally the most elite level you could operate at. And so I think we'll find out here over the next 3 or 4 years.
Well, he's not even playing with his team. Like, he's not even playing with his recruits. Like, he's playing with the coach that shouldn't even be mentioned, recruits.
Yeah. And on that note, I don't see him being a main character type coach either. He's not a Jimbo Fisher. I feel like he's got room to bend and to recruit more coaching talent and adapt as the SEC adapts to his team, which a lot of coaches don't have that ability, and that's why they kind of fade out after their gimmick reaches its the height of its the extent of what it's able to do.
I think that's a good point. That's kind of what we're seeing with Jimbo Fisher. And what Jimbo Fisher does isn't really a gimmick. I just think it's so complicated that you need, really top level elite quarterback who can understand that offense. And it just takes a lot of time. You can't just bring in like 5-star freshmen and expect them to get everything that he wants to do. Whereas with Heupel's system, you can. Like, you can literally bring in people who have never done it, teach it to them in a year, and have them run it at a really high level. And it's brilliant.
One thing that Tennessee's done really well, though, is that they've recruited really smart quarterbacks. In the last few years, we've really had highly intelligent quarterbacks that can get the system, that can process a lot going on in a very hostile environment on the road. So I think that's hats off to our recruiting department.
Did Jimbo Fisher have Jameis Winston? I wouldn't consider him an intelligent quarterback, but he is in the NFL, so.
Well, as far as the whole NFL thing, I don't see it. I think the most attractive job might be Oklahoma, but I think that's definitely toxic right now. I don't think anybody in the country right now would want to go near there. They've got just bad vibes all over, but they are coming to the SEC. So that is going to be very interesting when they're both in it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Oklahoma, are they coming to the SEC East?
It's probably going to be all shaken up. There's probably not going to be a West or East when all this happens. It's likely going to be broken down into some kind of pod system because there's just going to be too many teams.
I feel like there's going to be a northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest. I feel like it's going to be something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an issue of the NFL necessarily. I think that the real question mark is like whether he wants to get back into his alma mater and kind of go back, especially after what happened with the Stoopses. But we will see. I think he's committed to Tennessee, though. I think every time I've seen him, he seems like he is having a awesome time here.
Yeah.
He looks so happy. He's not talking smack. He just, except for saying that we were playing real football.
Yeah.
Props, Will Levis.
Yeah.
But he seems like he's really enjoying it. I don't know if Oklahoma is that attractive that he'd leave the job he has now, which at this point is probably the best job in college football as far as being up and coming. It hasn't been before, but I think it's very close now.
Most teams don't. I mean, coaches don't leave after just starting a really dominant program. So I just think he'll stick around, see if he can get paid and see if he can create something really special.
Oh,
I agree. You say that, but Saban left LSU for Miami, and then I'm a little worried.
Well, Saban
I think
his
the
pros.
NIL.
He went to the pros and then left and came back to college and just never left Alabama.
He took a $5 million interview. I mean, it was $5 million just to get on a plane to go interview with Alabama. Yeah, I mean,
would you have done that?
Turn that down. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think the NIL has changed the landscapes for coaches leaving too. Once you've established that money pipeline, you're recruiting at a different level now, in a different way. You are recruiting like a business now. And once you have that pipeline in the region, I think because it's no longer who's the best at hiding it, right? Alabama. Mm-hmm. It's, who can get away with doing it above table in a new landscape. And you saw, was it Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to go to a dismal USC program who's practically in the dumpster for USC terms, and he had Oklahoma humming and drumming. So you don't see people doing that, and the NIL changed things. So if we can pony up the money and he's building what he's building for the first time, Heupel won't leave unless there's something on his bucket list that we don't know about. He's building something, and I expect him to stay.
I will say this. He always just strikes me as a very genuine person. Every time I've heard him talk, he's very transparent. Now, he's not hyperbolic. He doesn't exaggerate things. He's very even keel. He's very level. But when he speaks, I believe what he says. And I've never had any reason to believe that he's using double speak or he really means something else. So when he says that he loves it in Knoxville and he loves this team and he loves competing every weekend with his players, I honestly believe that. And I agree with you guys. Like, I think he's here for a while. I don't know what that's going to mean. Obviously, anything can happen. I'm not going to pretend like we can predict the future, but I think he is happy here. I think he loves what they're building. And when he gets his guys in and they're rolling, man, this is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, let's talk. Man, speaking of trap games, let's get back to. We got a big trap game this weekend. I know. We're all looking ahead to Mizzou at home here in a couple weeks. But we got to go ahead. We got to go on the road and get this Georgia game out of the way first. If y'all look in the chat,
we're playing Georgia this weekend. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's kind of flying under the radar right now. But if you can, I just put together a quick infographic of some offensive and defensive comparisons. And this is what we were hitting on at the very beginning when we were talking about, like, the number one ranked offense or rush defense or whatever, just to kind of give you an idea of who we've played, how we've matched up so far, and who Georgia has played. So if you're looking at that, great. If not, I'll just kind of read it out loud, especially for people who end up listening to this. So Tennessee has the number one offense in terms of scoring offense, right? So that's points per game. I think we also happen to rank number one in terms of like yards per game. We have the number 25 rush offense. So that's in terms of just yardage, total yardage. And then we have the number 2 pass offense in terms of total yardage. The defenses we've played, I listed the top 3 in terms of their current ranking. So Alabama is currently the number 6 defense, and I think they were a little better before we played them. And we're going to find that to be a very common theme with teams that we've played. They ranked a lot higher defensively before they played Tennessee. Kentucky is currently the number 22 overall scoring defense, and LSU is currently the number 27 overall defense. These are 3 what we consider, especially Alabama, like Alabama would be considered top tier. Kentucky and LSU would be considered very good defenses. And as you saw, we hung 50-something on Alabama. We whipped Kentucky by 38 points, and we put 40 on LSU on the road. Conversely, Georgia also has a very good offense. They're number 6. They have the 23rd rush offense, so very, very close to us. And they have the number 8 pass offense. So offensively, these teams are both very capable, and they're very comparable in terms of like yardage, points per game. UT goes a little faster, so more plays per minute, that kind of thing. But here are the defenses that Georgia has played. Here's the best defense that Georgia has played. Missouri, who is currently ranked number 32. The next best defense that Georgia has played after Missouri is South Carolina, which is number 60. And then comes Oregon, which is the game that they're hanging their hat on right now as like their signature win, has the number 80 ranked defense. So Georgia's offense, while statistically, yes, they look very comparable to UT, they have not played good defenses, guys. No. Thoughts on that?
Numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie.
They just don't. I hadn't even really looked at it in that light yet, but when it's on the screen in front of me, all just like spread out like that, it's a little bit alarming.
When it's just laid out on my screen like that, just laying there, spread out.
No, I really think that what you're highlighting right now is the reason why the committee put them at 3 and put us
not
at
necessarily.
1.
It's I did all this before the rankings came out, so it was just an illustration.
No, but I'm just saying I think that they haven't played anybody like we've played people.
Exactly.
So it's just
exactly. When you look at the game that really challenged them the most this year, it was when they were on the road at Missouri, and Missouri's defense, which is not a great defense,
shut them down.
It's not even in the top 3 of defenses that we've played, really frustrated them. Like they brought a lot of pressures, really frustrated them, disrupted their passing game. Like they couldn't even score a touchdown until the 4th quarter.
Yeah, they had 9 points.
Yeah, it was all field goals.
Like I said before, I think that's the real Georgia. I mean, Georgia's great. Georgia's a great team, but I think that what was exposed in the Missouri game, I feel like that Georgia is the real Georgia, and I think Heupel and the coaching staff is going to expose that.
Yeah, this is a product, I think, of just playing a schedule that's really not that tough. Again, they can hang their hat on that Oregon win all they want to, but when you look at, I mean, Tennessee every year has to play Alabama and Georgia, then a draw from the West. Like Tennessee perennially has a really tough schedule that Georgia just does not. Now, as Tennessee gets better, like Georgia can say, well, we have a tougher schedule now. And the only other team in the SEC that can really claim that is like maybe Auburn, because they also have to play Alabama and Georgia every year. But just stacked up side by side, the numbers look comparable. But when you look at the quality of opponent, I mean, it's just not even close. Tennessee's offense has done what they've done against much better competition, and they've done it resoundingly. There are Georgia fans out there, guys, who think that they're going to hold Tennessee to like 10 points. And I don't know that there's like a pill or a syrup that you can prescribe them, to fix that.
The pass defense being 127.
10 points in the first 10 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, just like the numbers don't lie on this screen right now, numbers don't lie on, their players and recruits and stuff either. But it doesn't really matter because they haven't had a real struggle game yet. And we've had a couple of struggle games that's going to really play in our favor just on the mental side of things and the not making mistakes under a lot of pressure, which is going to help us on the road because, those are the things that kill a team when they haven't had those struggles yet. And then they just fall apart.
Yeah. So flipping on over to the defensive side, I mean, this is where you really see the disparity. And this is no surprise, right? This is what everybody's talking about. Everybody's going to talk about Georgia's defense, and they're a terrific defense. Number 2 in total scoring defense. They allow like 10.5 points per game. Again, we're going to look at the level of their competition and see like why that might be. They have the number 5 rush defense and the number 13 pass defense. But here's who they played. Their signature win, Oregon, is a top-tier offense. They're a crappy defense, so it's not a balanced team at all. So they have played the number 5 offense. That's fair. The next best offense that they've played is the same as the next best defense that they played. It's South Carolina at number 62, who's just a bad team overall right now. Like, no hate on South Carolina. They're just not. They're not a strong team. Like, that's not strong competition. They struggle just to get to 24 points, every weekend. And then Florida, which is right behind them at 64. So again, statistically a great defense. Personnel is really strong. We know they have depth, but yeah, they haven't been tested yet, really, in my opinion. On the Tennessee side, 26 total defense is scoring defense. It's not bad. It's not great. The number 9 rush defense, which is really where our strength is. And then everybody's looking at that number 127th in the country FBS in pass defense. Yeah. And I feel like that number just gets skewed a little out of context because of the way that game flow happens. When we're stopping the run and we're up by 30 in the third quarter, what do teams have to do? Like, they've got to throw the ball, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get that, like, we give up a ton of yards on the back end, but the fact that we give up a ton of yards and we're still the number 26th scoring defense says kind of what, I mean, that's the context that's missing from that singular number, is that we're still keeping them out of the red zone for the most part. We've played Alabama, who's the number 4 offense. LSU's number 28, and then it's a big jump to Pitt, who would be the next best offense that we've played to date. So, competition is a little more comparable there, but I just feel like that number 127 in pass defense, you're going to hear that a lot this week get used without the context that it deserves.
It's like the time of possession, like we're 121st or something like that in time of possession, but we're first nationally in scoring. So same idea.
And also, you have to think about who burned us the most this season. We had Florida's quarterback, who's got talent if he's not somewhat inconsistent, and then the former Heisman winner, who played an absolutely incredible game. Bryce Young put on an absolute show worthy of remembering. So I think that's something that we have to think about. And Ben, I think you make a great point that once you've got somebody like Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt, even when you're without Cedric Tillman, just throwing bombs constantly and can't be stopped. It's like, what are we going to do? But also in the Alabama game, we put up a lot of rushing yards. Alabama rushed for, I think, 118 yards in that game. Alabama, really? So I think that says a lot. And we saw against Kentucky, they definitely improved. Absolutely destroyed the quarterback. I mean, 98 yards, I think he had passing.
And 3 INTs.
Yeah, 3 INTs, yes. We played real football, Will Levis. But I gotta just say.
When he said who destroyed us the most, I was like, Garantano. Oh, wait, this season? Okay. Maybe Kiffin or Dooley.
The way to stop the Vols is get them to kick field goals, I think. The team that's going to keep the Vols tight gets them to stumble, kicking more field goals. If they get a little cold one quarter, that's how Georgia hangs with a team like this, especially if we get ahead. Georgia's not a team that wants to play from behind. They're not built for it. So you get ahead on a team like them, it could be like the Kentucky game. But I personally kind of think the teams are going to come in tight. Anytime you got a 1 versus 2, kind of matchup or a top 5 teams matchup, teams tend to come in kind of tight. I think the Alabama game was a bit of an anomaly. And that being at home, that kind of fueled a lot of that excitement early, a couple mistakes by Alabama. I'm not counting on those in this game, so I think we could see a real tight first half, and the first team to kind of break it open could run away with it by 2-3 scores, and that could dictate the game.
Yeah, Georgia doesn't make a lot of mistakes, but I will say this: I mean, Stetson Bennett is not Bryce Young. I mean, he's a good quarterback for what Georgia needs and what they want to do, and he's super competitive. And I mean, he got them to a championship. Like, that deserves credit, but he is not Bryce Young. If we get into any kind of a game like we saw between Tennessee and Alabama, give me Tennessee all day. I know Georgia has weapons. They have their tailback U. They have those tight ends that they use all the time. Those dudes are monsters. But dude, when you have Jalen Hyatt. When you have Jalen Hyatt that's running 15 yards behind everybody on your team, and he's doing it 3, 4, 5 times a game, like, what are you going to be able to? You have to be able to do that too, because you can score in 5 minutes, but we're going to score in 25 seconds. So, like, and then you just have to come right back out there and try to do it again. So if we're up 2 or 3 scores, yeah, I agree, man. It could be Kentucky level blowout. I don't think it will be. I think this is going to be a tight game. I want this to be a tight game. I want this to be the game of the year. But it would not surprise me to see Georgia pull away with it. It would not surprise me at all to see Tennessee pull away with it. But whoever wins it really has to play mistake free.
Can I ask you guys this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Has anybody else fantasized about the fact that Tennessee's probably still going to the Final Four even if we lose this game?
Yes.
Yeah, I think
that's my first thought after the Alabama game.
In fact,
I don't know
if we
how that
lose,
happens, though.
we don't have to play in the SEC championship, and then we just get to sit aside. It's very possible.
I don't know. So much else would have to happen, though. Like Michigan. So Michigan's out of the top 4 right now, which I think is crazy. And Clemson has to go on the road and play Notre Dame. So if Clemson loses this weekend, then Michigan gets in. But Michigan and Ohio State don't play till the very end of the season. So if Michigan beats Ohio State, I think that's the only scenario where Tennessee could lose this weekend and not play in Atlanta, where you then might have a number 1 Georgia, number 2.
It's almost like they set it
I don't know
up
who would be number
those
2 at
teams
that
are going to
point.
play each other. So, like Tennessee and Georgia, they're going to play each other. So they'll.
You would
figure
almost
those
have to
rankings
have
out.
2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams in at that point. I think
True.
it would have to be like number 1 Georgia, number 2 Michigan, number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Tennessee, and then Georgia and Tennessee would just end up playing again. I don't know.
There's definitely some ways to derail it. Alabama could derail it by coming back and winning the SEC championship.
They could.
It certainly lowers the scenario, but it's still really likely. And if you had told me at the beginning of the season that Tennessee was going to have 1 loss, 2 SEC teams were going to make the Final Four, they weren't one of them, and go into the Sugar Bowl, I'd have said, sign me up all day long. 2-3 years in a row, I'll be fine.
Yeah, true. It's like throwing his hands up. Like,
we're thinking bigger. We're thinking bigger, and that's okay.
First time in forever, too. Don't normally think about it.
I thought 8 wins, not a 9-win ceiling. And yeah, like a good bowl game would have been a major step forward. I was not expecting anything close to this. To echo, no matter how it ends, if it ended tomorrow, this would still be one of the most phenomenal seasons.
We'd be
of Tennessee
undefeated
football.
if it ended tomorrow.
Well, yeah, there you go. But this line, guys,
Florida and Alabama, it's a great season.
Yeah, I'm just crowned as champion.
But this line, I'm just looking at this line, and it opened at 15.5, and it's trading down at 8.5. Tennessee 7-1 against the spread. Georgia's 4-4 against the spread. Man, give me the Vols all day. What do you have to lose? Like an undefeated season? Like, we have money, but I'm saying, like, when have you ever gotten a chance to like truly pick the Vols in a winnable game that's a 1 versus 2 matchup in the last 20 years? It's never happened, man. I'm putting the money on the Vols. I'll take the 8.5.
I'm going to the casino tomorrow. It's
what's the one game that the Bulls didn't cover?
I do not know. It actually might be the Pitt game. I don't think we covered the Pitt game.
Now we're plus 215 on the money line, so it's pretty tempting.
Yeah, I'm taking the Vols winning outright. I think it being a 2:30 game Central is to our advantage. The only better advantage would be if it's a noon game.
Yeah,
I'm glad it's not a night game.
Yeah, I love that afternoon slot. Yeah,
I love that prime time CBS SEC game of the week. Yeah, I like the 2:30. I like Tennessee. I like it. I like everything's falling in place for Tennessee to win this game.
We're plus
like
4.5. We're plus 4.5 for just the spread of the first half. That is extremely tempting because we are strong in the first half. I would be surprised if we were down at halftime. I wouldn't be devastated, but I would be personally surprised.
If anybody could find me a prop bet on the over under Jalen Hyatt catches 2 touchdowns,
so they don't
20 yards behind the entire Georgia defense.
No personal players, but yeah.
Because I almost guarantee it happens, man. I've seen Georgia fans chirping on Twitter like, who's their cornerback? Is it
exactly.
Keely Ringo. Like, he's not going to run past that. He's not going to get one. I'm like, man, I almost guarantee he gets one. Like, I bet he burns you at least.
We hadn't really
once.
talked about how the Vols got those matchups, but they really broke it down. It was beautiful on the slow-mo where they've showed them switching and getting the linebacker exactly where they wanted them. And their coverage was so busted like a bracket.
They do it 10 times a game, and it works 50% of the time. It's just I've never seen anything like it. When the camera's like panned in on the quarterback taking the snap, and then all of a sudden has to like jump over here to film Jalen Hyatt catching the ball 50 yards. Yeah, it's like, and nobody's around him. It's like, how do they keep getting away with
teleporting?
This?
There's no one within 10 yards.
It sounds like everybody feels like we're trimming the hedges this weekend in Georgia, huh?
Up and down.
We're rushing the field.
We're burning the couches. Couches beware.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really decided on a final score yet, but if I had to pick now, I would pick a close game. I would pick something probably like 41-38. But at plus 8.5, I would definitely take the points for Tennessee here.
Open. That's exactly.
I don't think Georgia can put up the points like Alabama can. Definitely not. I can be wrong, but we'll see. I definitely don't think they can completely shut down Hendon Hooker, no matter what. And
I'll take Hooker.
Really, I'm not sure that they can shut down the run game while still trying to deal with him. We'll see. I have to wonder about what their offense is going to do to respond and kind of keep up. But we will see. I think with the defense playing as well as they are and our defensive line being honestly pretty excellent, I'm very interested to see what happens with their offense and with Stetson Bennett. I really am going to be interested to see what he does on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know if he has all of the prowess that Alabama has, but I think that Kirby's.
No, we lost you there, Truett.
I said this a few weeks ago on the podcast. We have always been intimidated by Florida and Bama, but we've never been really intimidated by Georgia. So I think having all this momentum right now, it's good if we can use it correctly. Sometimes I feel like we're at our most vulnerable place in these moments sometimes. But I still feel like we're the underdog, even though today we came out with the number 1 seat in the, this playoff projection or whatever. We're still going into the number 1 team. Everybody's talking about our offense. They got a lot of pressure on them. I think we can step up. And if we win, we have a chance to be undefeated if we can finish out the season. I can't believe that. I put us at 7-5 at the best this year.
Well, there's been those comparisons to the 2019 LSU team, and the type of numbers they put up offensively are similar to what the Vols are doing. And it certainly has some of that feel, that Joe Burrow couldn't be touched, But I have a feeling Stetson Bennett, this is going to be his best game. I mean, look,
Probably.
Florida had their best game at quarterback. Stetson Bennett's going to ball out. He's a gamer. He's a little more agile than he appears to be. He doesn't throw that rocket ball, but he's accurate. If we can rattle him, great. But I think, this game's going to be in the 30s, even if the defenses play well. It would take a real slop fest, I think, to keep this from being another just, fast-paced, high offense, high-octane game, because Georgia's going to find a way to score.
For sure.
They've got too much talent at receiver, and that's going to be a bad matchup for the Vols. But Stetson Bennett scares me because he's that underdog who shows up in big games and performs.
I think we're going to hit him hard. I give him respect like you do, so I'm not saying, he's not going to come out and ball out. But the way that we've been playing defense and the way we've been hitting, like Levis last week, man, I kind of felt bad for him after a while. It's just like, dude, he is being punished after a week of all this hype about his NFL draft status, and he does not show up.
I don't get it, man. I still don't get it. I've heard it. I've heard that since like the off season or since September. I just don't get it. I don't see what people see in him as an NFL quarterback. Like, he just hands the ball off to Chris Rodriguez and then runs like one play action. And like, is this what the NFL that's not an NFL offense?
No.
Yeah, Stroud, very impressive. Bryce Young, I mean, he looks like, he could be playing for the Chiefs next year. But, there's some talent out there. I agree. I didn't see it in Levis, and he didn't scare me coming in, and he sure showed who he was, right?
Yeah, it's the old saying, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. And like, we punched them hard in the mouth and they had no idea what to do. Man, there's a scenario where that happens at Georgia this weekend too. Like, I think that's how we win. They're not ready for it. They think their defense is so good because they haven't been tested yet. They haven't had that oh shit game where they've had to like pull themselves up off the mat, spit their teeth out, and get back in the fight. And we kind of had. We've had those moments at Pitt and Alabama.
Pretty much every game, honestly.
And if we come out and we hit them really hard, how are they going to respond mentally? Like, are they going to roll over and take it, or are they going to be able to do that? I think they have the dudes to do it, of course. But we haven't seen them have to do it yet.
That's how we get beat, though, I think, is we don't get that immediate punch like we have gotten in the first quarter. There's a moment during the Kentucky game, and I was like, dang, it's 3rd and 40 right now. Those kind of things is devastating, having, certain type of penalties that stack up, things like that on the road in a hostile environment like Georgia. That's how we don't win. Interceptions, when we're trying to throw the deep ball because we're trying to recover from a muffed punt. We haven't really had any of those scenarios this year because we played so tight. But, anything can happen. It's college football.
Yeah, 3rd and 40, only in Tennessee football. Will you see that?
I don't know what it was, but I was like, dang, they got us way back.
Oh, well, so apparently a tight end blocking downfield is offensive pass interference. That's what that was.
Yeah.
So what I'm curious about is, we talked about this after the Alabama game and talking about how Tennessee got behind the offensive line and we're like within a hair's breadth of Bryce Young and just like swarming onto him. And he kept like dodging them every single time. It was infuriating to watch.
Yeah.
And I wonder, can Tennessee do the same thing? And if they do, will Bryce Young be able to do the same thing? Or will Stetson Bennett be able to do the same thing that Bryce Young did? I'm not sure he can.
I think he'll make plays like John said, but he's not Bryce Young at all.
He's not a Heisman candidate.
Not even close.
But the good thing, back to the Alabama game, it was nice to see Tennessee come back from being down and come back and win the game. Seeing them playing from behind was something that we haven't really seen. So with it coming into the Georgia game, it's nice to know that we have that in our pocket to come back from behind if it is a close game.
I get the same vibe from Georgia as I did for Alabama. Like, we're coming into this game and they think that there's really no way that they can lose. And that's how Alabama felt, because that's how Alabama's felt for years. And Georgia's owned us for like the last 5 or 6 years. They really feel like, oh, we're going into their house. They're the best team in the country, defending national champs. Like, there's no way that they can lose. And I think that's what it. I can't. It's blurry. I can't see what you're holding up there.
ESPN's got us at 25% chance of win.
Yeah, I don't pay any attention to ESPN's FPI.
Quick stats: Hooker 21 touchdowns, 1 interception. Bennett 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
So Tennessee's schedule this year has been lining up perfectly. So, I mean, we had the week off Alabama. We beat Alabama. Then we had homecoming, a little break, still a win. Then we had Kentucky, where we got back. We're ready to go. For Georgia, I mean, I don't know if it's destiny, but this schedule.
They're riddled with injuries too, and we're like completely healthy, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. I did not think we would be healthy like at this point.
Whenever I saw the schedule, I was like, oh shoot, this is going to be bad. But it's actually playing to our favor, I think. With Kentucky, with UT Martin, no offense, Drew. And then Kentucky won that blowout and dominating win. Like, we're rolling into Georgia. Like, man, like I did not ever think I would be saying that our schedule was very favorable going into Georgia week.
And coming into it confident, not cocky. Mm-hmm. And I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, this is why you schedule Alabama every year. This is why.
This is why people want the SEC. Because it gives you an opportunity at any given year. If you can actually win, you got a chance to go all the way to the college playoff, even if you started unranked.
Yeah, I mean, this is a de facto playoff game. Like, everybody's going to be watching this game going, whoever wins this game is probably going to win the national championship.
Let's go, baby.
It plays like it did against Kentucky. Tennessee going to dominate this. I think it's going to be a blowout, but for sure. I mean, we're 8.5 points under. I think we could win by 2 scores.
It's possible. It's possible.
It's like it did against Kentucky.
Yeah, the total over under at 63 seems low to me.
Well, Tennessee can score that.
Yeah, that does seem low, and I think because I'm reading some team totals, it's got Georgia at 36-ish and Tennessee at 28. I don't. That all seems low to me. Yeah, Tennessee under 30. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's realistic.
That's how you beat us, but yeah.
You said earlier 41-38. Like, I'm right there with you. That's what I'm thinking too. I think Tennessee 41, Georgia 38. I'm right there.
For sure. All right, guys. It's been probably a little over an hour. I think we just rounded the hour mark on our recording here. So anything else we want to touch on, talk about? Any like closing thoughts on the Vols or anything else going on around football?
It's been the greatest year of my life.
Other than getting married and my kid being born, after my kid, this is the greatest season of my life.
I had to step out. Michigan State. Do you guys cover that?
No, we hadn't hit on that, but we could use a legal opinion on what's going to go down here before we sign off.
It was assault.
Yeah, Michigan's better than Clemson. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't get why they rank that. So.
Clemson is a joke this year. I mean, they're good, but they're not.
They're not better than Michigan. I just can't believe they're at 5. Personally, that's the last thing I'll say.
I think that might get sorted out when they go to Notre Dame this weekend. We'll see, but I think it's highly likely maybe they get taken down on the road there, and Michigan slides
that's
in.
Spicy.
Is that a day game or a night game?
I'm not sure.
Not that it matters. I don't think Notre Dame is. It is what it is. Okay.
Can I say this? I got a text from a group of Midwestern Big Ten fans after the Alabama game, and my cousin, he wouldn't send this on the group thread because he didn't want to get embarrassed. But he said something about that SEC time slot on CBS just hits different. And it does. And that's a guy who grew up watching Big Ten football, Big Ten basketball, has no love for the SEC. He went out of his way to tell me that before the game was even over. And that's the kind of hype that's going to be there this weekend. If we can put another, fantastic ball game together, I mean, listen, all the pressure is going to be on Tennessee to win it out and close it out. But after this one, they're not cupcakes, but I don't see anybody matching up with them until the SEC championship. And the fact that we're even having those conversations, we're getting to experience all these hype games with Tennessee against Florida in primetime, Georgia in primetime, LSU smacking them at noon on the road, just lining up perfect. And you just got to love every minute of it as a Tennessee fan and just bask in it, right?
We love
absolutely.
Cupcakes.
Tennessee has nothing to lose and everything to gain. Georgia has everything to lose. So I really like the spot that Tennessee's in.
Yeah, me too. All right, boys. Any final words? Closing thoughts?
Go Vols.
Go Vols. That's going to do it for today's episode. Again, follow us on Twitter at SEC Recap. Follow us anywhere you prefer to chug your podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, smash that like button, that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to grow. We want to get to 1,000 guys. We've got awesome SEC Pride merch on our store. That link is going to be in the description. We'll see you again later this week for our Game of the Week episodes. It's great to be in the SEC right here on the SEC Recap.